afternoon, everyone. Evelyn here. And I'm coming to you today. I want to make sure these messages got out to you. I was listening to Magenta Pixie and Pam Gregory this morning, which I love their videos when they come together because they really do complement each other really well. And as soon as they started bringing up their information, it was bringing up my information. And I had to go back to June 6th over all my notes because I had to write down specifically what was coming up at that moment as this was coming into me. And I wanted to bring you that information because it then could perhaps add to the value of the information that you got from Magenta and Pam, but also because in the scheme of things in the starseeds, the twin flames are a separate subgroup of that. And there may be more information specific to the twin flames that may come up for you. And again, if things come up for you as you listen to this, please add it to the comments, and that may help awaken somebody else and their knowing. So what came up first? So I woke up this morning really late because I didn't go to bed till after 2 last night. It was like 10:01 to 2, which was great because I hadn't slept well in at least 3 or 4 nights. And I went to the beach yesterday, which may have helped as well. I definitely went in, did some grid work at the ocean, put my feet in there, and sent some blessings out. But at 10:01 to 2 is when I woke up this morning, and there's that reflection of the wheel and the magician, as well as the masculine and the feminine 1 to 2. And that's when I saw Magenta's video and turned it on. So I was listening when I was still in bed. I ended up getting up around 10:19, which is the sun and the wheel of fortune, very powerful energies. And I stopped her video at 14:39 because I needed to get up and write some notes because I was getting the downloads about my information that's connected. So specifically at the top of the page, I'd written down the crystal man and the homunculi or culi, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, homunculi. But again, the crystal man, which in alchemy is when we stop living as the soul in the body and become the body that lives in the soul. So again, the alchemist was coming through all week, and I just posted some stuff about Thoth and the alchemist, and that came up a couple weeks prior as well. And so that was coming up again here. So as soon as they were talking about the different she was talking about the rose lines, Magenta, and this energy of the one line trying to get through other lines. And again, that energy of space and time, and Pam being an astrologer, that energy of the birth chart, which is space and time, was all resonating with me a lot as they were talking about that. And she was talking about the stargates, specifically like the multiple rose lines, and then again associating it to the rose heart for me, and the solar plexus. So they didn't mention quantum entanglement, but that's what I was getting immediately. The same kind of energy that she was talking about. And again, for any of you who've seen the energy of the rose heart, it's literally, a scientific picture of a rose, of the energy lines of the hearts, that energy of collapsing in upon itself. The two lines coming together becomes that rose in the heart. But I also always get that solar plexus quantum entanglement of trying, and I brought that up before recently too, of trying to get through that quantum entanglement, so to speak, and unweave or untie the knot, untangle the knot. Again, space and time, which is something they were bringing up regarding the birth chart. And, it marks when the soul comes through the veil. And she was bringing up Scotland, which has come up multiple times in the past year for me, as being the most major of the rose portals here, or stargates, which is what she was defining. But there's these stargates all over the world. It's just that one is coming up as the lead stargate regarding that energy. And I was getting the symbolism of the at symbol, and again that coiling of the A. And around, she was talking about the energy not necessarily being at the rose chapel, but around it, which then triggered me again because I was just talking about alchemy and the Hierophant, which is the initiator of the hidden house. So, and she said hidden, right? That it's not not necessarily at the Rose Chapel, because it may be hidden, so that, and undesirables may not be able to find it. So as soon as she said hidden, I was getting that alchemist energy that's been coming through recently. The master of the hidden house, or the Hierophant, the initiator, right, the student of alchemy, and the keys of Thoth, which came through recently, as well as my book of Saint Germain, which I show you a lot. This one here, the Most Holy, the Trinosophia of Saint Germain. Okay, and there's the author there, Manly Hall. And the Thoth stuff came up online separately from the book, but again, it's the same information about the alchemist and the hidden information regarding alchemy as well. So, the master of the hidden house, the initiator of the keys of Thoth, and again, talking about the crystal man and how our bodies are becoming the perfected crystal man. And the boomerang came up here again, which I always tell you, the number 7 for me is that boomerang energy, as well as the gamma ray, that used to be written like a 7, but now is more known as the forward, or digamma F, which is forward, not like a 7 backward. And it was very interesting, because first, when I went to the beach yesterday, I looked at my speedometer at the time that I left, and my speedometer was showing 1777.2. So there's the triple sevens, the 3 keys coming up with the 1 and the 2 as the gate holders, the masculine and the feminine. So that was very significant. So I'm like, okay, what's up for me today? And the plates that I saw going down to the beach and coming back were very significant as well. The number 34 was very significant. That's been coming up in my reads. And again, that energy of the energetic exchange, but also flipping the 3-3 to the EE, which is the energetic exchange, those arrows of love. And the 34 is that the middleman, that conduit, so to speak, which then brings up also the that flame lit under your butt, and then the boom of the bomb, right? And then the fuse that connects the two. That also comes up here. So I look back at my notes and the Mayan cobweb, and I ended up going back to June 6th, the 6/6 portal, and then today, June 14th, which is the Temperance card of angels and patience and balance and that higher love. And the 6 is the lovers. So here's the typical love that we experience in a 3D world, and then ascending to that higher love of the Temperance card. So I look back at my notes, and the Mayan cobweb came up regarding the shaman's cross, the 777 on my speedometer, and also that I'd listed for you different Parthenon replicas, one of which was the National Monument of Scotland. And again, the association with Athena and the Parthenon. And again, Athena to Zeus, as in, Pegasus to Poseidon also coming up. Some other energies that came up since 6/6 was the Northern and Southern Cross. So the Northern Cross is the swan and swan love. And then the Southern Cross also came up. And the energy for me of Venus eclipsing the sun also came up in my reads this week. And Elijah came up. The time 424 came up, and again referencing the 24 of the 24th pair of chromosomes. And then the birth of the harmonic convergence, there was a review of that came up this past week as well, which is considered the birth of the 6th sun and the 5th earth, 12/21/2012. And then on 6/7, which 67 came up today as well and yesterday as the Knight of Pentacles. And 667 is that Knight of Pentacles, that loyal, humble servant. Regarding the 24th pair of chromosomes and then the years, right? So we're in 23 now. So the 24 comes up as the 24th pair, and then 25, 26, and 27. And then ultimately getting to 28, which is the number of the twin flames. The code PTFF also has come up this past week, which was coming up as actually food for the poor is the acronym, but it was coming up as the pin and my pin diagram of the feminine collecting the energy from the sun and cycling it around to the masculine, creating this vacuum to clear within. And then once the energy is used up, the pin then falls open again for the feminine to go collect from the sun again, kind of like a fill-up station. So the pin came up, the twin flame digamma, which is F, is 2 gamma rays, the digamma. So the PT, the P of the pin, the TF of the twin flames, and then the F of the digamma. But PT was also coming up as part-time, or the point, which for them was coinciding with time and space, and then the FF of fast forward in the digamma energy of the twin flames. The F and the reversed and flipped F, when coming together, also make this box, right, with the middle line emphasized. Again, the bridge in the middle of the box, the two Fs, one upright and one upside down like that. And then I haven't looked into this code that also came up, EL, VU, and then BE, which came up in a certain read. And I did evaluate what those acronyms meant at the time, but I haven't looked back at that again. But that did come up as well. And of course, the L comes up as Elohim energy, as well as the L, the letter L, which is the lambda, which I bring up a lot recently with the 4 and the lambda leap, the lambda father connection there. Or again, us both connecting with source in order to bring the unions together. Also, this Atchison came up when Where's Waldo came up in New Mexico. So Atchison is at chi and sun. So again, there's that life force energy in the sun and the energy of Christ, and the railway, which is the grail, God's rail. And then kufis also were coming up as the cake top type of hat, which was coming up here as tops the cake, and which tops the cake, or the gift, is the ash, because the A and the E smushed together looks like a bow on top of the present, and Pleiadian, according to Elena Danaan, also means bright light, the ash. So there's the gift. So again, bringing up the window, here's the window, emphasizing the middle of the window, and I'm just getting open the window. I'm just blanking out on the name. It'll come to me in a second, though. So then we get to the gift over here. Where's my finger? Okay, so there's the gift. This is the rolling stone. You see how the letter E is in there, and the 3, and then the M and the W. That's the rolling stone, is the gift with the ash or the bright light on top. Right, it tops the cake. So, but the kufi was also coming up as that. So that hat that's flat on top, and that you have the power to heal, which is hope. So then I told you about a scam number that kept calling me over and over and over again the other day, which was 717-772-2920, which when I looked up was the ACOPA Center. It was a call center. But I was also talking about my name and my maiden name being Cope, and that being some other definitions like the cloak that the priest would wear, not during Mass, but off times. And some other energy came up with that. I don't want to go into all of those definitions. But the 3 keys with the 717-772, it's literally the 3 sevens with 1 and 2 around it, just like I saw on my speedometer yesterday. And it would start with the 7, which is that gamma ray or the key, the boomerang. And then on the other side would be the 29 and 20, which is 2-9 and 2-0. And 9 is the one and all, that source energy, and 0 is the human embodiment of source. So again, here's that energy of going to source and back to human embodiment again. And again, the COPA call center, right? To just call my name, and wherever I am, I'll come running. So, oh, you're still unwritten. So that's the song I was trying to think of. You know, open the window, and Spirit's connecting with me, saying thank you. So you have the power to heal with hope. And again, that number again of the 3 keys of Thoth in the middle between the masculine and feminine being the gate holders, but the 3 keys also, the 777, hitting the jackpot in creating that bridge between. The 3 keys of the masculine and feminine, which comes up as the 1 and the 2, right? The 1 is the masculine, the 2 is the feminine, and the 1 is also the leap between the 2 points, or the arc, And the 2 looks like a Q. When you write a capital Q quickly, it looks like a number 2. So the 2 has come up to symbolize the letter Q, which is the circle with the line, which also represents the leap, right, to different realms. So here with the masculine colon and the feminine Q, okay, and then again the leap between realms. And the boomerang of the 777, or that bridging energy between the masculine and feminine with the 1 and 2, who are the gate holders, 29 and 20, which came up as that phone number, bridging of worlds. And this had already come up before I watched the video for Magenta this week around bridging the 2 circles. So Hawaii had also come up, and I hadn't looked up Hawa yet, but the 2 eyes at the end of Hawaii were coming up as an exclamation point and a lowercase I as the chakra system. And the pineapple, and again 51st dates was coming up, but broken down as the pine or the pineal and the apple were both coming up very significantly here, along with that date, June 10th, which then I got to the element pyrene came up. And really, just because it was hexagonal, a hexagonal-based molecule, but it had directional flow to it, like the torus with direction. So the toroidal field, but not straight up and down, but actually showing direction or action. And then the 144 came up with the 3 of Cups that day, which is the leap to the 44 of Hercules and her harvest, but the 3 of Cups of joy in that leap to her harvest. And then the difference between inspire and aspire, where inspire means to breathe in, but aspire is to vacuum, or the desire to breathe, as opposed to just breathing and inspire. And also the boring machine, or like CERN, right? CERN is like a big boring machine that tunnels through the ground. And this was very significant in the difference between inspire and aspire, because inspire is to breathe, aspire is to vacuum or to desire to breathe, or for God to take your breath away or breathe for you, through you. So the difference being, basically when you're inspiring or breathing, then the boring machine, you're in that boring machine, right, that tunnels through. But when you aspire and letting God take your breath away, you are the boring machine. Where spire means the one loop, the coil, like the electromagnetic field coil, the turn, the shift, the sphere, the sprout, or in other words, the wick, the intermediary between lighting that wick, the flame that ignites you, and the bang on, or the big boom on the other end. And this general energy of to be or not to be, or to be conquered or not to be conquered, right? To be conquered, to be the conqueror or be the conquered. And then 8675309 came up. And there's that 6-7 of the Knight of Pentacles, the humble loyal servant, the 8 of the dance of that humble loyal servant, the 53 and 9, which is the Knight of Swords, and the O and 9 we just talked about, going to the 9 and then to the O, of 9, which is the Hermit, that God energy of one and all for one and one for all, and the 0 energy of God embodiment, embodying into the human avatar. Then 44, 11, 777 had come up, which again is her harvest, the 11 of alignment, the 777 of the 3 keys, and the energy in alchemy of the salt, the rock salt, the quicksilver, which is considered liquid silver, and then the gaseous sulfur, used in alchemy, and again representing the solid, the liquid, and the gas. Where Mr. Ed of the sea, of Christ consciousness, and I always see Mr. Ed as that God energy, Saggy energy, talking to us, but also ED, of course, is extra dimensional, so it can represent ETs as well as education. But Mr. Ed of the sea, which is the whispering bench, as well as Christ consciousness, and then the Ben Franklin Bridge came up as the whispering bench. Ben Edom or Idom was also coming up. Liz, Elizabeth, Liza, and the statue at high noon. So there's that symbol of at again with the circles around. And the brothers Poseidon and Zeus. Where recently what came up was a statue that had been found back in 1928 in Artemisian, Greece. I'm not sure it's pronounced. But they're not sure if it's a statue of Zeus or Poseidon, but it was also found with a boy on the horse, which could represent Zeus and Perseus versus Poseidon and Pegasus. And again, that Atlas energy of Poseidon's side, and then the Hercules energy of Zeus's side, because Hercules comes up with Athena for me as her masculine persona. So at 6:11, the trident of Poseidon and the bolt of Zeus were coming up. And again, my code I showed you the other day of the crystal man, the new crystal man, which literally comes up as the H, which is the 8, the O is O, and then the 1111 represents co-creation, 111, and then adding the 1 of UN in the word, homoculi, and then the Q of CU, and then the L and the I at the end of the word. So this is the code for the crystal man, 80, 1111, and then the Q exclamation point, and then lowercase I. So of course it's a very significant number there. We have the 80, which is source embodiment, backing up the dance, the strength, and the manifestation of dreams. The 1111, which in gematria, the first entry, is twin flames. And then the Q, which is conception of the masculine and feminine, but also that transition of worlds. And the exclamation point as the I is the wake up of the kundalini and rising up the chakra system. The exclamation point is coming back down and saying done, right? So you're not just going up through the system, you're then coming back down, like the rising and diving of the eagle. So Thoth has 3 names. At the end of the alchemy, it says to say Thoth's name 3 times, and there's 3 different names. And the first name is that again, I don't know how they're pronounced, but Kekatet or Kekate, but it's that CHE of the chi, the QU, and then the ET, which can represent 2 ETs or 2 twin flames or 2 ands, and is Andromeda, and we just talked about how Andromeda swallowed herself. But there's still a little bit of residual outside of Andromeda of that other system. The second name of Thoth is Arlik, which is the dead that are no longer dead, the walking dead basically, and then the Volamites or Metes, which translates as vomiting up light. So the energy, Sisters was also coming up with that too, very interesting. With key, like 2 keys, and then ET, which also can be E-tet. So there's that one, the E of the feminine Eve and also Merlin, and the tet, which in French is head. So again, the energy of the mind of one and the energy of the other, or the head of one and the wump of the other was coming up there as well. It's so funny, I'm just getting that now. But there's a sister energy there. The key and the key, and the ET and ET, which is and or Andromeda, the 2 different Andromedas having swallowed herself but still being seen, and the go-between. And also his second name, it can also be construed as Chek-tet, the Kekatet, which is literally checking your head, your mind, your thoughts, are the waking dead vomiting light. To wash onto shore, twin flame and twin flame, or AT and AT, into a ball, to be worth getting sick and sleeping in order to awaken from the dead. And I'm getting castaway there now as well. So, and by the way, today is the 14th, and the day adds up to 27, which is my Queen's Gambit number, which we'll get into that in a second as well. So today is the Ace of Wands of that flame, lighting that wick, as well as the Temperance card of having patience and balance in that. And again, 27 being the Queen's Gambit and going into Hieros Gamos as that final step. So, in alchemy also, with the crystal man, the bird is represents the intelligence, the daughter cell of splitting the cell into two. The altar is the initiator, or you, that takes action. And then the torch is the rebirthing, or the consciousness. And then the sky is the Hall of Records, or the Akashic Records, the canopy above, right, the heavens, the veil between us. And then the triangle was coming up to reiterate the splitting of two as one, but also one into two, going both directions, as the right side up triangle and the upside down triangle of the masculine and feminine, and of course the Merkaba. So, as we go on, the twin sisters came up of Andromeda, folding in upon herself, reflecting their father as the 42, Two of Cups, as the soul of the father reflecting out to his daughters, that same resemblance. But it's like his soul, and it's the way they're seen, their outer personality numbers, the Two of Cups. And the numbers that came up the other day from the read were 401203 and 402703, which is referencing the 12 of the 1 and the 2, the masculine and the feminine, and the 27 of the Queen's Gambit, that Q and gamma ray. So the 27, the Q's gamma ray, I've already reported this to you, is coming up as an eclipse of two things that are then growing together. So the two worlds are basically the two gates, and then building that bridge between them is that line. But it's just like, getting your palate split in your mouth, and when your mouth isn't big enough, right? So the braces hold your upper palate open until there's time for the new growth to happen in the middle to make your palate bigger. And it's that same energy of that. It's that I'm just getting the stent-like energy too of the black hole. That same kind of energy of bridging across in the Queen's Gambit, the 2 and 7, or the Q and the gamma ray, where the Bath of Mary then comes up, which is like a double boiler in alchemy. And again, that reference to the eclipse. And also what comes up here is in this same picture that I just showed you, is referencing the triquetra as you remember in the Avatar movie, the engines, the propellers, like that keep it vertical and not having to move like a helicopter, or hovering rather. So there's that energy of the eclipse of piggyback, which also came up this week, and the second born, and this is all from the word BA, the number 3, and then the 1,000 sons of enlightenment when you graduate. So when you become the alchemist, or you reach enlightenment at the top of your head, which is also the 24, or the 24th pair, the 1,000 sons of enlightenment, the 3 of the masculine, feminine, and source, right? So when you're each connected directly to source, then automatically you fully become connected to each other. The eclipse of these energies and the bridging between, the piggyback of the tiger lioness, of that Tyon, of that, I have a picture in my shaman deck in the desert of a totem pole where the lion and tiger are literally piggybacked on each other. The second born is the rebirthing of the human into the crystal man. And the incubus was coming up here as the masculine coming into the feminine. But again, that reference of the incubus and succubus, which are actually the energy of the twins that they share in the light body, right? They feel each other's energy, loving energy as well as sexual energy, but it can have that same kind of meaning, right, in the way it feels. And depending on your perspective, and do you see it as something positive or something negative? The nightmare also coming up as the Mary in Mary's bath, right? And the water basin, the fragrance, and then the water basin and Mary's bath was also being associated with the fragrance of forgiveness, right? In the phrase of the fragrance being the forgiveness for the one who actually smushed the flower, right? So the boomerang is the boomer and the ang, which comes up as the Bath of Mary, and then the angle of the pyramid, which is 51.7 coming up here, divided by 11, which 11 cubits is the size of the queen's chambers in the pyramid, and 51.7 divided by 11 equals 4.7, which is that sweet spot of the 4 to 7 in the middle, but just to the side of the light, airing to the side of the light. It's also the heart chakra to the crown chakra, 4 to 7. The 11 cubits of the queen's chambers, which also equals 528 centimeters, which is then the 52 of the queen of swords, where 51 is the king of swords, and the going between the 51 and 52 in the degrees of the pyramid. And it also is the 5 of the Hierophant, who is the master of the hidden house in alchemy, and the 28 is the twin flames. So the C and the M come up here as Christ and Mary, and the bridge of co-creation as the King of Swords is 51.7 or 7 degrees of that boomerang or gamma ray, and the Queen, who's 52 with 8 of the 528 centimeters, CM, which is that Christ and Mary energy. So the King of Swords and the Queen of Swords in that 7 and 8, which is that energy of the 78 card, the 10 of Pentacles of heaven on earth, and the energy of Andromeda and her swallowed twin, vomiting her up in order to hang in eclipsed fashion, as they're hanging out like that. And interesting enough, Magenta and Pan were talking about both the moon in that same formation of eclipsing each other until the old is no longer needed there, right? The bridge has been built. And talking about the 3D and the 5D earth, the same thing. There's two different worlds as the bridge grows between. The at 6/24/73, that date came up, was coming up as the first split. And again, 6th grade was coming up for me, as well as age 5.6666 to infinitum, which is rounded off to 567, referencing also the 5D, 60, and 70. And the area code 703 had come up. And I looked that up in Gematria, and the first entry was masturbation, which is mastering of the BA energy of the Tyon, but also brings up the bat connection. Ion is connection. So the Ba Tyon and mastering this, as well as the bat connection. And it was interesting, right? Because the 3 first entries for Gematria for 703 was masturbation, and then Obama, and then area 51. And 51 is the King of Swords. And Obama has that BA in it, which was coming up, right? He was the second entry. But again, that energy I always bring up of the twins being the monkey in the middle was coming up there as well. And then referencing the Ba again and the mother. So Obama's mother was coming up here as well. And then the tiniest little red spider came crawling now onto the line of my page as I was writing. At 11:46, which is the 11 of alignment and the 46 of the 6 of cups, and that Tyon energy of the tiger lioness, but Tyon is also TI, which for me is source, on. Mastering the hidden house of kissing, rebirthing, preparing, the son, the mother and father, the 3 and the 5 of the 3D and 5D, and the compression, right, making that coal a diamond, the weaving of quantum entanglement, the bathroom water or Mary's bath, and the fence of reeds. And 1000, the fence of reeds very much references the guardianship of nature and the 1000 sons of enlightenment and the piggyback totem, which is the wave of even and not, right? So the sine wave is up and down, right, of balance. The wave of even and not, of to be and not to be, or to be conquered, or, to be the conqueror, to be conquered. So then the avatar symbol, that engine came up that looks like this reference of the Q that I get of the Queen's Gambit, but it's also bringing in the triquetra energy inside of this. So this is literally the triquetra, this hover engine that you see in the avatar plane. And the 1/8 dance also came up this week, which is the X, which is 2 1s, but they're actually both 8s because they're the chromosome, which is the X of 2 8s really. So the 2 8s dancing, they turn each 1/8 towards each other, then become the X, which then is the 1/1, which is the 1/8 dance of the twins folding in upon themselves, becoming this symbolism of both the gate holders, right? So the one is 2 dots with an arc between, but they're here represented as both the gate holders and the bridge. And this is when the twins come together, they become the shared 8 in the middle, with the outer halves being their independent selves still at the gate. All right. So there we have that twin bridge and the gate holders both at the same time, which that was interesting too, because then they brought that up in the video of the warriors now, us becoming the warriors on 621, being both the gate holders and the bridge. And this is what's coming up specifically for the twins, right? They are the gate holders and the bridge until it's fully healed, right? Until it's fully formed, which then was also being referenced as the 2 pi symbols next to each other, right? The googly eyes of the 8 symbol. And again, this is the energy that's shared between the twins, and then the 2 halves on either side that are still independent, the gate holders and the bridge. What also came through this week, like I told you, was the 33 to the EE, the flip of that Christ vibration into the energetic exchange, and the catalyst being the 34 in the middle, which is the 3 to the 4, flips the 3-3 into the EE in the eclipse of the heart, which then brings up the horizontal pillar of resonance here. All right, so the 3 and the E, which is also the star, the toroidal field, which then creates the heart with direction this way and direction this way in the horizontal pillar. And you see, of course, there are 2 hearts coming together, and these 3 and the E can be intertwined, as in hand holding as well. So there's that hand fasting energy. But again, the focus of the magnetic horizontal pillar as opposed to the electric vertical pillar. And the horizon line, right? When an explosion happens, you see the vertical explosion and then it goes out, right? You see that the ruffling of the clouds all along the horizon line. The horizontal magnetic resonance as opposed to the vertical electric star, and the energy of T for 2. T, or top dog, or timeout, and 42, which is that 2 of cups, but also the 4 of the lambda leap, and the 2 of the Q, right, the queen, the leap from one world to the next, but also conception, right, conceiving a child, where the G of God is the C of that whispering bench of Christ consciousness, and the T, which is the top dog, or source energy. So again, the G represents that Christ energy, or the whispering bench, which is the 2 gate holders and the bridge between, along with source energy there, holding it down. The lambda leap to the queen. The creation of queen is the creation of U, E-E-N. U is the Holy Grail, N is the Jesus energy, the masculine of the Holy Communion. And the energetic exchange between of the twins in the middle of the bridge. The Holy Grail and the Holy Communion of the MM for Mary Magdalene, which is the horizontal magnetic arc line, and then the JC, which is representative of the torus and the toroidal field, is the vertical arc line. The horizontal and the vertical pineapple, the pineal and the apple, and 50 first dates. And the apple, remember, is the torus, the toroidal field, and the pineal gland. The vertical pineapple and 50 first dates, where the 10 of cups, which is 50, is the emotional fulfillment of the 51 and 52, which comes after 50, the Queen of Swords and the King of Swords, and again the 51.7 degree angle of the pyramids, and the energy of 8675309, the Knight of Swords, the messenger of truth, to that 0 and to the 9. Right, 0 being the human embodiment of source, and the 9 being the one and the all for one and one for all, and that hermiting source energy. Remember that 9 is the 0 with a line on the right, grounding it to the earth. So here's those 5D messages of the Knight of Swords, messenger of truth, or knight in shining armor, in the path of one. All for one and one for all, the 41 and the 14, reflecting here as the Holy Grail and the Holy Communion, all being the magician and the hermit in source embodiment, representing the twins. So the wounded warrior, which is 35, reflecting the 53 of that Knight of Swords, the Wounded Warriors, WW, right? So it's 4 U's. Then it becomes the 53 flipping, which then becomes 3 U's, which is WU, which means shaman, and the messenger of truth, and then down to 2 U's, which are the twin flames, down to the single U of the Holy Grail, which is God's rail. The gate holders and bridging or tunneling or boring through on God's rail, the love train. So then we go to, I went back to see what more they were saying, and that took me into the next years, 23 to 27 and 8. So she had said in her last video, Magenta, that 5:24 to 26 was a cleansing portal of rebirth and rejuvenation. And for me, they didn't really bring up Venus in the talk, but that's where I just brought up for you guys. This Venus transit then peaks at 777, which is that Valentine's Day energy, as I'm getting 777 as the bridge between the 1 and the 2 in multiple ways, like so crazy. So again, the summer solstice is coming up June 21st, very significant, which they were talking about being the collective integration of, a lot of overhauls and things like that, both on the grand scale, universally, but also within, smaller shifts going on in our lives. And you can watch, I definitely recommend watching that video. There's a lot of information. I mean, it took me a while to watch it because I was taking a lot of notes. But this energy of becoming more polarized, right? So before the union comes the extreme polarization, and then the collapsing back together, just like the ship sinking, right? It rises up and then it sinks down. So there's that energy here. And then she talked about the superhero suit as our ability to rise ourselves up whenever we need to. And again, that ability, our downloads and upgrades that we've been getting to live in these 2 realms of the 3D and the 5D. And again, as the North Node and South Node are changing, 718, around 717, 718, and again, this energy of nature versus dark energy of Taurus and Scorpio. So, So then also Pam literally said, stay on the eagle's perch, which I've been talking about the eagle constantly. But the eagle wasn't just diving and rising here. It was soaring across, which is representing the horizontal line. The timeline here. And when I broke down time and space here, right? Line is the arc, right? The leap, the bridge. And then space is the spa seal, right? To be in that perfect place. The final mastering was coming up here in the exams of the 3 keys of alchemy, right? By the time you get to Capricorn, you graduate in alchemy. And then the 3 keys are Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. And there's that 1, 2, 3 leap and fly, that soaring across of this year, 2023, the King of Wands, right? Because he's learning how to balance his passions. Because this is the final mastery. He's already gone up the chakra system and now coming back down to the fire signs at the bottom, right, where the Kundalini awakens from, that fire energy. So here is coming back to the King of Wands this year and mastering the King of Wands energy as the 3 keys of alchemy, the 1, 2, 3 leap and fly to soar horizontally or magnetically this year. 2 to 3 in the 23 to soar horizontally and build the heart. So the 3, and Magenta was talking about too, that the 333 is the 3 of the rose, the creation of the flower. And when I drew that, what I was getting here is the energy of this, my whispering bench, the C, the Sophia of the sine wave, and then the 8 of the dance between them, the Christos Sophia, which is the flower, right? You have the 8, you have the C, and you have the S within this 333. All right, so that's that Christos Sophia dance, and the 333 of the rose, and again the spirals collapsing in upon themselves in the heart, which literally is what the energy of the heart looks like. And the energy of land and sea was coming up with Avatar too, right? Because the new Avatar was all about the sea avatars, where you notice their tails are much thicker and stronger living in the water as opposed to the land. That was of significance here, along with the engines of the hovercraft being like the Queen's Gambit there, that energy of two circles and then the line between them bridging two worlds. Okay, so that symbolism is very significant. That's called the Queen's Gambit. It's the 27. So again, the Venus transit all summer. I brought up other dates as well, 777, and then around the other Chinese Valentine's days, the 22nd, I think, and then went into September 19th as another peak, as well as into November. I can't remember which day that was, and then into Christmas as well as these Venus energies. So Venus is the star of the year. So after 23 was coming up 24, which is the 24th pair of chromosomes, the DNA being activated to the lambda, or the father's leap, at just the right angle. Right? The lambda father is the father-son clearing, but learning how to do this at just the right angle. And I was getting that the 2024 of the feminine is generally the main activation of the collective to that 24th pair of chromosomes. And remember, 24 is enlightenment at the crown. And now notice these first 2 years, 23 to 24, is the 34 of that energetic exchange, which flips the 33 to the EE, creating that bridge. And that star energy of the double diamond star, the 33 and the EE. When we go into 25, it comes into the Knight of Wands, which is the fire lit underneath your butt, right? The action taken to instigate, the magic potion that flowers the fragrance or forgiveness for crush. 26 then is the ash. All right, so here's all of the symbolisms here. So 23, 24. Is the two chromosomes there, the 24. The 25 in block letters written here becomes the potion, right? The jar of potions with the perfume or smell and the magic, right? And then here's 26, which is the triquetra forming. And then 27, which is that Queen's Gambit of the two worlds colliding and bridging together. So all of those symbolisms were coming up very significantly. The 25 and 52 also is the Knight of Wands and the Queen of Swords coming together, right? That 25 being the fire lit under the Queen of Swords' butt, which equals 77 of sovereignty. The two Qs were coming, so the triquetra also comes in here as the two Qs coming together, which then is the infinity symbol, but with the lines coming out of the Qs facing each other, which then forms a third circle, which is that triquetra energy. So literally the two Qs coming together, the two conceptions, the two worlds coming together automatically form that third. So it's that same energy of the triangle of the masculine and feminine, each making their solid connection or bridging with source in order to automatically connect with each other. Okay, so then we go, so after the 6 of the ash energy, the AE, remember the icing on the cake, the bow, and ash means bright light in Pleiadian, which is again that energy of the crystal man of vomiting out light. The spiraling rose heart of two, I was just getting two spirits in the night, two spirals meshing, plus the instigator, the flame lit under the butt, and then folding in upon each other. There's that collapsing within each other of the rose heart. And then into 2027, which is the Queen's Gambit, 2027. And remember, 20 is the judgment, it's the wake-up call to each of these numbers. So 2027 is the wake-up call to the 27 of the Queen's Gambit. And then I was getting, just one look is all it took, and just one look. And again, the energy of the concept of parentheses too, pairing of the C's, right? The Christ consciousness on one end and then the reflection of that on the other. The Queen's Gambit of the 27 is the Q and the 7 key, or gamma ray, or boomerang. The Queen's Gambit in her chambers, right, the 11 cubits chambers, where in the Queen's Gambit she puts out her pawn, the Pa WN, and WN is to open or fault or blame or create a fault line of we and them, the father with two U's and son, or the father and son and the twin monk keys in the middle. And again, that silver to gold bridge, right? The silver bridge is regarding our human veil, and the gold bridge, the Golden Gate bridge to source. So the Queen's Gambit in the chess game is her putting out a piece of herself, a bit, her gambits, perhaps her thighs, the Queen's Gambit in her chambers, where it's her game, right? She corners him in chess and schools the golden goose with a stare face to face in checkmate, where the stare is the ST of the path of ARE, R, which is also one of Thoth's names, Arleek, right? The awakening of the walking dead. And then to 2028 is the awakening to the 8 of the full dance of the king's, where it's the Queen's Gambit, it's the King's Heroes Games, or the Heroes Gamos, where the Hierophant, right, the master initiator of the hidden house, basically, where Gamos is also the whip, the scratch, the marks on the face, the moral compulsion, where Gamo means spoiled, or the letter G, which is that T and C of the Christ God energy, or the Do of Do Re Mi, the gamut, the scale, the octave, the gamma, the phased array, or the radius of disorder, confusion, excitement, and noise, which is chaos, the fallow deer, the water, and the gamar, which means to pinch or fall in love with, and gams, which is, and then the definition of the fallow came up, which is that land that's plowed and harrowed but left unseeded for 1 year, left inactive or uncultivated, undeveloped. Light yellow, blonde, blue, pale gray, or light brown, pale red. The master of the hidden house, Scarface, whipped and crowned, spoiled and humbled. The letter G of the T of top dog and the C of the Christ consciousness, and that whispering bench, which is the two gate holders and the bridge across. Christ in the top dog and the whispering bench for dishing tea. The octave and the radius of the gamma phased array to experience chaos in order to become the fallow dear one, inactive for a year, to take care of themselves only, to be unused and yet with rich soil. Light yellow, blonde, blue, pale gray, pale red, or just light brown in general, or in other words, the human, the human, of emotion and moral compulsion, to pinch and fall in love with. So we have the pawn, so we have, again, the energies of 2023 to 4, which is the 34, and then 2025 to 26, which is the 56 of the Two of Swords, being in your knowing and keeping your energy clear, and then the 2027 to 28 being the 7 to 8, which is that ultimate 10 of Pentacles of heaven on earth. The pawn, the PA, and the WN I brought to you already, but again, the energy of creating a fault line, right, to divide we and them, and again, bringing up that ultimate polarity or polarizing in order to come back to the middle and then stick. The father, two U's, and the son, the father and son, the twin monkeys in the middle. Again, you are the gate holders. You're becoming, apparently according to Magenta, you're becoming the warriors and the bridge, right? So the star seeds have been building this bridge, and then the star warriors now become the guards, right? So the gate holders and the bridge, regarding that silver gold bridge too, right, of the veiled human experience, and then the golden gates of source energy. The Queen's Gambit. So 2027, the 27 is the Queen's Gambit, and then it's in his court. Now watch the bouncing ball, like a tennis game, The Hieros Gamos is the ritual of enacting sexual relations of god and goddesses to guarantee fertility of the crops in the future. So when I turned the page, then I was dealing with the triquetra there, and here, so you can see the energy of the engine, of the avatar engine with the triquetra, and then the movement of the moment before. The 1144 is the 59, and the 44 over here, right? The last quarter till midnight, that last energy. And the Mercedes symbol of the triquetra as well, the propeller. The gamos also comes from gamella, which means mess kit or billy can, a fall or tumble. So I looked up the that avatar engine to see what came up. It's a design from October 30th, 2020. A design from the firm AVX came up regarding bidding for a new military helicopter at the time in a coaxial design. And for those, this could be over your heads, over my head, but for those of you who are engineers, this will make sense to you. The coaxial design, the main rotor, has 2 discs instead of 1. They spin in opposite directions, again the twin flames, stabilizing the helicopter without a need for the tail rotor. More efficient, and combined with 2 ducted fans for propulsion, is much safer and faster too, as well as 2 stubby wings now as opposed to the typical longer wings of a plane, or perhaps no wings of a helicopter. The AVX company is to compete with bigger companies, so they partnered with L3 Technologies. It won't have to be the ducted main rotors of the Aerospatiale SA2, which is that Avatar engine. It's SA2 Samson from Avatar. But it's easy to see how building this engine back in 2020 would get us to this SA2 engine. Also, 9/30/21, Honda came up with the E and then capital VTOL, Avatar Robots and Space Technologies, the Electrical Vertical Takeoff and Landing Aircraft, EVTOL, which they were talking about taking it from the 3D to the 4th dimension, defying the constraints of time and space, and ultimately into outer space. So then I went back to Magenta's message again with Pam Gregory. And they were talking about the influx of solar energy of the rose and dragon lines and the June solstice. The energy, and you know, dragons has been coming up nonstop in my messages recently. And they talked about laying those eggs at the rose lines at the cross points for seeding, which couldn't happen before because the energy wasn't right. And again, we're getting all these new downloads from the sun. And they brought up a master dowser too, which was really interesting too, because Pam was talking about how historically the alignment time at each solstice would be, like a day or so before or after, and that she checked with this master dowser that she knows to see what it was now, and the number that she came up with was 34, which I just talked about, the 34, bridging the 33, flipping it into the EE of energetic exchange. With when the 3 and the E come together, that's the energy of the toroidal field and the star, and which is 17 and 17 days on either side, the 34. And she also said by the end of 24, it would be up to 200 days that then leads to those years of peace. And again, the dragon ley lines being activated. And again, then confirming with themselves, but again, I'm confirming again with my messages. So let's just see if there's anything else. And yeah, please watch that because there's so much information in their video. I definitely recommend it. Something else that came up for me was in talking about the Schumann resonance. I was getting the shoemaker, and that was a code that came up recently. I literally said it in my read, and I forget what the other word was. I said, is this the shoemaker or this? And it probably had to do with Pegasus, right? And Mr. Ed and the horseshoe. But the shoemaker was coming up as the Schumann resonance. Very interesting, right? Because then the shoemaker is talking about Mr. Ed and having his shoes made for him. And the solar flares here in the Schumann resonance. So again, that's increasing. And as you know, the Schumann resonance has been rising exponentially since the harmonic convergence. Let's see. So again, at the end, they were talking about the two moons, right? The inorganic moon that we've had, and then it completely changing into back to the feminine energy of the organic Luna. And she talks about lunar versus Luna, which I've been talking a lot about, the daughter energy. And as soon as I wrote this down, it's about the solstice 621 and the divine feminine awakening to the goddess, it was 314, which is my daughter's birthday. Again, that pi energy. And the daughter moon, which I've been talking about a lot. Again, the two energies overlapping, the eclipsing, whether it's two moons or two earths, or like I was talking about, the eclipse of Venus going away. Or is it, right? Because Venus is supposed to be like the evil twin of Earth, and are we actually building a bridge with Venus as well? The two overlap, and again, until it's healed, right? Just when I brought that up last video too, right? You hold the bridge until it's healed in the middle. And I like that she talked about the two realms being the physical realm, like the 3D, and then the antimatter realm, like of the 5D structures. So yeah, but watch their video. Oh, this was another similarity that came through. Pam brought up pantheism, and I just gave you the replicas of the Parthenon. So that same kind of energy was coming up, where pantheism was. She was talking about crystals, where everything seems to be living. The study of pantheism. And they were talking about amethyst being really strong for the solstice too. But please watch. Like I said, they have so much information on their video. And it was 321 then, where thunder was building outside and it started to rain. So 3, 2, 1 jump. There's that leap of the 3. 21 is a 3. 21/3 would be the way it would be written in numerology. And again, awakening our memories as we get more upgrades and downloads at the solstice, which as twins, you know this happens every quarter for us, but it's really major at this particular junction. And again, my connection to what she was talking about, the light worker and the light warrior now, as of this solstice, I'm seeing that 8 between the two dots of being both the warriors at the gate, the guards, and the grid workers, so to speak, of building that bridge across. And again, they talked about the cross again at the end, which then was bringing up the fact that I brought up the Northern Cross and the Southern Cross, right? The Swan Grid and the Southern Cross. And again, talking about the shift of the North and South nodes coming up, which is going to change the energy completely, right? Because Aries is very aggressive. And Taurus has been more of that follow-through energy, like building the bridge. And then Aries being the warrior energy coming in. And again, watch that video about Stargate Ascension and the accelerated timeline here. But then finally what came up for me was that Ba word in the Master of Ba Tayan, but also Bat Ion, which is the Bat connection. The Bat Mitzvah came up of Ba, of course the feminine Bat Mitzvah and the masculine is the Bar Mitzvah was coming up, and the 613 commandments, which is interesting because yesterday was 613. And the commandments are split up into 248 of bones and organs and the 365 days of the year. And again, there's positive and negative. The positive are kindnesses that you would do, right? Like the 10 commandments. And then the things you shouldn't do, or in other words, the negative commandments. So the way they got the 613 was coming up as the Torah in Gematria is 611, plus the first and second commandments of Moses, because they were the only ones heard directly from God. And then the TZIT, which is the ritual fringes of the garment, which Gematria is 600, plus the 8 tassel threads and 5 sets of knots, which brings it to 613 again. But what was also coming up about the Bat is the actual bat, as in Batman comes up all the time for the masculine. But Bat, of course, is the daughter, Bar is for the son. We're talking about Bat here, not Bar. The daughter, so we're talking about the daughter moon again, and the mitzvah, which is the commandment or law. But what also came up regarding that, which was kind of weird, was that Bat means the Hebrew in the Bible is flying in the dark and references the bat, which is referenced as unclean, or in other words, referencing the daughter as unclean, right? Because when she becomes a woman, right, the conservative or Hasidics aren't allowed to touch the woman, right? Because she may be having her period. So it's literally a bot is referencing the as soon as the girl becomes the woman as someone dirty. And I don't like that reference at all. But there's so many references to bat because bat also means the boat. So there's the ark. It also means one. It means the trampling of the horse's hooves. So there's the horseshoe coming up again, or the shoemaker, which is also referencing the military or the warrior's march. It also means hail and the basin of Mary's bath, that double boiler, or again, the two realms being connected by the bridge. It also means numbers 8, but also 9 and 1, right? The beginning and the end, and then the dance to manifest dreams. It also means the moth, as in the moth to the flame, and the morning star. It means the whip, and the whip picture was literally like a chokere of 3 circles. It means to flutter as the hawk, or flapper, or to flap, to wink. Also, the cricket club came up there. It was very interesting because there's a reference here. The Philadelphia Cricket Club is the first country club in the United States. But the girl in the bat mitzvah is the initiate, right, into her commandments, her coming of age, so to speak. So again, bat and ba were being very significant. Remember, ba was coming up as the 1,000 suns. The energy of to be or not to be, right? To conquer or to be conquered, or perhaps collapse them into the middle. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to let you go there because we're already over an hour. Oh, that's funny because I'm at 106 already, and I think Magenta's video was like 109. That's really funny. So, yeah, let me know in the comments if you get triggered to any knowings from what I've said. And as always, remember to drink your water, to breathe, to sleep, to get your joy and your nature, and rise and be love as always. Breathe. I really just want to tell you to breathe right here. As we just went through the 50, 51, and 52, and 53. Really interesting. Bye, guys. See ya.